The following is a production of Frankie Freitas and the Internet Museum of Holography.
They knew everything about me. They knew what I ate. They knew what I drank. They knew what movies that I watched. They knew where I was from. They knew what cigarettes I used to smoke and everything they did. They must have watched on the Internet. I don't know. They knew everything about me. They knew everything about me. They knew everything about me. They knew everything about me.
That's right, Sandra. We're watching you. Ay, ay, ay. Don't you just love the way the Internet is portrayed in the media? Hello, this is Frankie Freitas, and welcome to another week of HoloTalk. This is our special guest week, and we also have our listener emails and questions to get to. So let's get this week's show on the road. Hello, and welcome to another week of HoloTalk. This is Frankie Freitas, your host. I'm here tonight with Debbie Lee. Debbie, how are you tonight?
I'm fine, Frank. How are you?
Okay, are you getting ready for the holidays?
I'm trying.
You're not ready yet?
No, I haven't even started.
I haven't started anything yet either. I'm one of those people that goes out Christmas Eve and gets all the shopping finished on Christmas Eve.
That's cutting it close.
That's cutting it real close.
What happens if you don't find what you want?
I always find something. You know, there's so much out there. How can you not find something?
I guess.
Yeah. Our guest this week is Wang Chun, who is known as Hunter, from Holographic Development Company Limited in Shenzhen, China. Hunter will be giving us an inside look at the development of holography in China, so we're looking forward to bringing this interview to our HoloTalk listeners. Our musical guest this evening will be Chun, EMI recording artist. They've sold over 2 million records worldwide, and they've been recently seen on MTV and just had a large Newsweek article done on them, a full-page Newsweek article. And we're hoping with bands such as Chun to bring HoloTalk listeners a global experience with music. Have you heard any of their music yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I've heard it, and I've become a fan. I think they're pretty good. They're from Pakistan, and they're a rock band, and have a very interesting sound to them, a global sound. So we'll be hearing from them. We're currently booked on the show up until September of '98. I'm not going to go through the list again. We'll go through that maybe on one of the off weeks. We've added a few more people. If you're someone who's involved with the field of holography out there and you haven't yet heard from myself in order to be a guest, I'll still be in touch. But I know who you are and where you are, and I certainly don't want to overlook anyone. It's just that we're into our, I believe it's the 4th week now, aren't we?
4th or 5th, yeah.
Yeah, and I certainly did not expect the show to be booked until September of '98.
That happened quick.
That happened quick, so we're going to get everyone on the show. Okay, let's move on, and let's go first to a telephone question that we got this week from one of our listeners.
Well, I have a question that is, I'm doing a report on holography, and so I've been reading several different books and articles, etc. And one of the things that came up I'm having a hard time understanding is I read that if you cut a hologram in half, you would still have all the information there and the complete picture there, in just half of the film, which is kind of hard to understand. I would expect that you would just have half the hologram or half of the image. Anyway, I couldn't stand it anymore. I had one hologram, and so I went ahead and I cut it in half, and sure enough, I only had half the image, which is what I expected to see, but not what I read I would see. So I'm wondering if you could give me a better explanation of why you should have the whole image there, and also why I only ended up with half the image when I cut my hologram in half.
Well, it's very unfortunate that you cut a hologram up to find that out. That works best when you're using a laser transmission hologram. Now, this is something that has been going around for a long time, that if you break a hologram up into 1,000 pieces, each one of the pieces will contain the entire image. And that's true to a point. What happens is, let's say you have a laser transmission hologram. Normally with a laser transmission hologram, the object is located much further away from the holographic film or the holographic plate than you find with other holograms, like your reflection holograms, which you probably have, that you cut up. Well, if you were to cut a laser transmission hologram into 4 pieces, what would happen is if you took the upper left-hand piece and looked through that, you would see the entire object, but you would see the entire object from that upper left-hand perspective, and so on and so forth with each of the pieces. Now, with a reflection hologram, they're usually copied from a laser transmission master, and that object is much closer to the plane of the holographic emulsion itself, so that when you cut that hologram, you don't have enough distance there to look through that individual piece and see the perspective of that object from that piece. So while this is true, it's more true with certain holograms than others, and notably true with the laser transmission hologram. I'm sorry I had to cut your hologram up to find that out. Okay, as usual, we've received quite a few emails this week with listeners' questions. The weeks that we have the guest, we're not going to do all of the email questions. We save those for the weeks in between, so we'll take a few tonight. So, Deb, you have the list of them there. Why don't we go to our first one?
Okay, Frank. Why are some holograms green and others gold and other colors?
I saw this question come through, and there's really no simple answer to this. There are quite a few different techniques that are used in holography that can give you different results as far as the final color of the hologram itself is concerned. You're probably speaking more of reflection holograms, the type that you see in the holography shops. And as you walk down the aisle, or wherever the holograms are displayed, you see some holograms are green, some of them are gold, some of them are red. It all depends on how the hologram itself was processed if you're using silver halide emulsion. If you do a hologram and you do a processing technique where that emulsion does not experience any shrinkage, you will find that that hologram will play back at the same wavelength or close to the same wavelength that created it. So if you made your hologram using a helium neon laser operating at 633 nanometers in the red part of the spectrum, if you use a processing technique which does not allow that emulsion to shrink, your hologram will play back very close to that wavelength, and your hologram will be red. However, if you use one of the techniques that actually removes some of the material from the emulsion and that gelatin layer shrinks, you get a shift away from the red part of the spectrum, and that hologram now plays back at a shorter wavelength, which moves it away from the red into the gold or the yellow. And that's what happens when you see some of those goldish type of holograms. Now, with the photopolymer holograms, it's a completely different thing altogether. And what you're getting is a material that's playing back at very close to the wavelength of the argon laser that was used to create the hologram, because your wavelength working with the photopolymer holograms is actually in the green and blue part of the spectrum. Now, you can also control the color in a hologram by using a technique that's called triethanolamine. And that's getting a little bit too far into how we need to answer this question at the point, but what I'd just like to put in here is the fact that you can control the shrinkage of that emulsion by expanding it first before you do the exposure. And this will give you what's considered color control. So if you do a multiple exposure, each one of those exposures, after that hologram's been processed, can have different colors. When a hologram plays back, you have a multiple color reflection hologram. So that's in a nutshell, and the best that I can do right now as far as why some holograms are green, why some holograms are red, and why some holograms are gold. More than likely, if it's a silver halide emulsion that's being used, it's all due to the individual processing technique that was used for that hologram. As we promised on one of the other shows, we weren't going to let our listeners sit through an entire show before our guest comes on, and I'm going to stick to that promise. So what we're going to do now is move on to the interview with Hunter. Now, there's something very special about this interview that I'd like to tell you about as I set this up. Hunter does not speak any English. When he decided to be a guest on the show, I sent him a list of questions, and he was actually tutored in English so he could answer them. The interview ran probably between 25 and 30 minutes, and what I had to do was take that interview and go into one of the digital editing programs and edit it out so that it sounded really good. So the interview turned out to be just slightly less than 15 minutes after all that was edited out.
Wow.
In any case, I hope I did a good job. Hunter, if you're listening, I hope you'll be very pleasantly surprised at how you sound in the interview. And it was a pleasure speaking with you. It's amazing that you were sitting somewhere in China and I was sitting somewhere in a small town in Pennsylvania talking to you. So let's move on to the Hunter interview. I'd also like to invite you to visit the Holographic Development Company Limited website, which has the link right on the HoloTalk page. So if you go back there, you'll find a link to that and visit them on the World Wide Web, perhaps even as you're listening to the interview. So let's go on and listen to what Hunter has to say about holography in China. This is Frankie Freitas from HoloTalk.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Very glad to talk with you.
I'm glad you're on the air. Hunter, could you tell us a little bit about your company, Holographic Development Company Limited?
My company is established in the middle of this year, opened with my friends and me. Actually, it's a new company, and I think our major commission is to market display holograms around China. You know, we have marketing the holograms through past half year, and our business going to succeed.
Yes.
And I think we are, as far as I can say, maybe the only company doing this kind of marketing job for displaying holograms in China.
In China.
Mm-hmm.
How are holograms used in China? Are they used in magazines or packaging?
The hologram in China commonly used only for the label on some small package.
I see.
That we can see anywhere. I think in U.S. and in other countries, it's also like some embossed labels.
Yes, embossed holograms.
That takes almost 99% in China, and usually they are very small. They are 1 to 2 centimeter squares.
I see.
I can find some bigger ones in abroad, but in China it's only small ones. Actually, we never say any other use, like in the magazine cover or books or any package. In the package, they have some, not hologram, they have some shiny materials like hologram papers or something.
I see. Where can you see holograms? Do they have stores that sell holograms in China? If someone were in China, where would you go to see a hologram?
Well, first of all, all through the China, there is no hologram gallery or museum.
Really?
And there is no such a museum or gallery. That's what I can say, because I have traveled many cities around China to search for the hologram. And I have visited many scientists in China. They dedicate their whole life development of China. But they told me there is no such a even very small gallery. Every time when they show the hologram to people, it's always something totally new to most of Chinese.
I see. Do you expect to see that change sometime in the future?
That's what we want to contribute in this situation in China.
Do you have any organization for art, holography in China?
We don't have a professional holographic artists, but we have some scientists. They're doing research in holography. They usually create some art holograms, but not professional. We don't have such an organization in China. And recently, as a company, actually, we want to dedicate in the art field of hologram in China. So we send many letters to companies and organizations around China to appeal such a organization. We hope in the next year in China we can found such a organization to develop the art holography in China.
Do the scientists ever show or exhibit the work that they've done anywhere in China?
No.
No one ever has a chance to see the work that's being done?
No. I think they only, show their works in their laboratory, and no such exhibition in China.
The schools in China, do they teach about holography in the schools?
Well, in the college, especially in the physics department and science department, they have some class on laser and hologram. But in the high school and in the other departments in the universities, they don't have the class to teaching the hologram, holography technique.
I see.
And because they don't have this kind of class, if you bring some hologram to the university campus, most of students never see the hologram, and they don't know what it makes.
Yeah. Is your company involved with any of the schools in China to teach any of the students about what it's all about, to give them a chance to see this technology?
We have, in the past 2 months, we have opened 6 exhibitions in high schools and Wang college in our city, locally city. And the students, show a great interest in the hologram. We cooperate with the education bureau in this city to make a project educating holographic technique around high school in this city.
That's
and
wonderful.
Next year, we will have some detailed project in every class, in every school on the hologram technique.
That's wonderful. Congratulations.
Thanks. About the school, I think in every school, we don't have, especially high school, we don't have any holographic equipment and any kind of hologram demonstration in the school. So the student never, can imagine such a thing. And after they visit our exhibition, the students write many compositions about their idea about hologram. Some of the compositions we have gathered are very good idea, and we want to publish a book on the students' idea.
Yes.
After they say the real hologram.
So most of the people who are doing holography in China are scientists. Do you have any people doing holograms, like as a hobby in China?
Well, I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
So what is your company's recent plan for the next year or so, and what do you see as your forward-looking plan, maybe 5, 10 years down the road? Where do you expect to be at that time?
One of our recent plan is the education. We focus our attention on the educational holographic around China, and recently, maybe by the end of next year, we want to get hologram education popular in some maybe 2 or 3 major cities in China. And we're planning to open more exhibitions by the beginning of next year around this city, especially in the schools.
Yes.
And the schools can, get attention of the hologram, especially the scientific point of view of hologram to the students, and they are very interested in this new tech in China. And recently, we also plan to open some public exhibitions in our city. And besides our city, there will be a new science center, and they have a new showroom. The first show will be the hologram technique, and the show will maybe visited by 4 million people in 4 or a half a year. And we want to, get the hologram, through this exhibition to local people here.
Your city, Shenzhen City.
Yeah.
I do not think that most people in the United States know about Shenzhen, but it's a very modern city, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the most modern city in China, and this city is the first economic free zone in China. This is one of the 4 economic advanced city in China. To make a worldwide show of our company and the holographic situation in China is also one of our recent plans. We will hopefully finish this job by the January next year.
Are you close to Hong Kong?
Yeah, it's only several miles.
I see. So anyone who's visiting on vacation Hong Kong should definitely go over to Shenzhen City and see the city itself.
Shenzhen, China, have the reform and opening policy. And actually, Shenzhen, this city, is a window of the reform and opening policy of China.
Well, maybe someday I'll come over to Shenzhen City. And
You're warmly welcome.
I'll bring all the equipment with me. I'll bring everything that we need to make some holograms, and we'll go around to some of the schools while I'm there, and we'll make some holograms with the kids. How's that?
Well, that's wonderful. If you can come here, hologram and the holographic technique, it's not a single technique or picture to most of Chinese. They are something really new and something really fascinating to them. If you can come here by that way, you are definitely welcomed by the whole Chinese.
So, Hunter, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to say to the listeners before we sign off here?
Thank you for offering me and my company such an opportunity to talk with you. And holographic fan, as a little child, I read, as far as I can remember, I read a scientific fiction book, and it's called Laser City. And, in the book, it told me many things about laser, about holographic telephone, holographic movie, or something, even not, invented right now.
Yes.
But as a little child, I'm so fancy about hologram. Also, as an artist, I used to learn art for many years. And I hope all the holographers around the world can visit in China and show their works in China. If they are interested, I hope they can make lectures and hold exhibitions, even create their own works in China. In any case, I will be, help them by my best.
Okay, thank you very much, Hunter. It's been wonderful speaking with you through this magic technology of telephones, and now everyone who logs on around the world will be able to hear you right on their own computers when they listen to HoloTalk this week. So thank you very much for being a guest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that was the Hunter interview. Hunter's company is Holographic Development Company Limited in Shenzhen, China. He has a website that we put up for him for his company. Don't forget to stop by. The link is right on the Holo World page, right where you log on to see listen to HoloTalk. So visit the page, and you can actually see some of the photos from China of Hunter going out into the field and working with the children in China to teach them about lasers and holograms. It's a nice little site. Okay, we started our icon program this week. If you'd like to support HoloTalk, you can grab one of the small HoloTalk images and place it on your own homepage and link it to the talk show if you like. We're also looking into the possibility of doing the show with video as well after the beginning of the new year. If you may remember, 7 out of 10 people who responded to our last survey on the website said that they would like to watch HoloTalk along with listening to it. So we're looking into a few unique ways to use this technology. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to another question.
I'm calling about a question that I had about medical applications with holography. And my question was that I've heard about using holograms to detect, like, they use holograms to show the body, and you can see if it's symmetrical or not, and that would determine if you have bone structure that is not formed correctly or muscular structure that's not formed correctly. And I wanted to get more information on that.
Holography has been used in the medical fields for many years. In fact, we should get Bert Myers on the show, who's been working with medical imaging, holographic imaging, for quite a few years down at the Veterans Administration Hospital down in New Orleans. The types of holograms that I've seen that showed effects on the body were basically holographic interferograms or interferometry, where you could see the effect that different things had on the body, such as vibration. I saw a series of holograms that were made of people who were tested using power tools, and the effect that the vibration has on the person's body using these tools, such as a jackhammer. Other holograms that I've seen in the medical field have been where you've had implants, such as ball joints into sockets, and you could see how the implant had a stress effect on the actual bone that it was connected to. And once again, this was done through holographic interferometry. So there's a lot of applications using holography in the medical field. There's a company which is called Voxel, I think, VOXEL, which manufactures an imaging device where holograms can be made of CAT scans and things of that nature, and you can view the holographic CAT scan as if you were viewing almost like an X-ray, but you're seeing a completely three-dimensional view of that scan. So let's hold off on that. That's all I'm going to give you for now, and let's see if we can't get someone like Bert Myers on the show, that we could do a special show for medical holography itself.
Okay, Frank. I myself am an avid 3D image and hologram collector. I have over 150 holograms from non-sports cards as well as others.
Wow.
My question to you, though, is regarding the Nishika 3D camera. This is a camera that takes an image with 4 lenses and creates a 3D effect of the image, not a stereogram. Only one image is produced. My problem is that here in Canada there are no developers for the film. This camera is similar to the Nimslo 3D camera. I'm wondering if you know of any places that do develop 3D 4-lens film. If not, thank you for your time and trouble.
I know this does not have anything to do with holography. This is 3D photography using the Nimslo camera. But our 3D photographer friends are actually brothers in arms, and we both enjoy three-dimensional imaging, different techniques, but close to the same results sometimes. So I thought I'd throw this in here. I'm not familiar with any processing house right now that works with the Nimslo or the Nishika cameras that do 3D imaging. I know they have a number of throwaway cameras now. I think you pay $13 or $15 for the camera. You take your pictures, you send it in. That camera's then discarded and you get your photos back. So that seems to be the way it's moving with this 3D photography. So, to be a buddy, I'll send this out to the audience. If anyone knows where this gentleman can get his film processed, would you please email me and let me know the name and address of the photo processing house that can do this film, and I will forward it along to him so he has a contact in the industry so he can continue on with his hobby, and hopefully maybe we can convince him to try holography at some point, which is a wonderful three-dimensional imaging process. So maybe we can help you out. Okay, we do have a news item this week. I find this news item very fascinating. Tell us a little bit about it, Deb.
Okay, it's titled Laser-Powered Projectile Flies 14 Feet.
A laser-powered projectile. This is cool. Let's hear the news.
Okay. White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. Scientists have successfully launched a laser-powered test vehicle off the ground using a technique that might someday be used to put microsatellites into space. The advanced propulsion system operates by shining the laser onto a parabolic reflector located at the rear of the light craft vehicle. The reflector acts as a concentrator for the laser beam. Air is rapidly heated and forced out of a nozzle at the back to propel the vehicle. In the spin-stabilized free flight test, a pointing and tracking guidance system actively locks the laser beam onto the target. A more sophisticated guidance system that includes steering capabilities is scheduled for sometime in the near future. The long-term goal of the program is to propel small microsatellites into orbit. Such satellites would be about 1/2 to 1 meter in diameter with a mass on the order of 1 kilogram. After being laser-powered to the height of 40,000 to 100,000 feet, the launching vehicle would escape the remaining atmosphere by converting to laser-heated rocket propellant.
Well, folks, that about wraps it up for another week. Thank you for tuning in to HoloTalk. Don't forget, you can send in your questions with our toll-free number, which is 1-800-458-3525, or send an email to holotalk@holoworld.com. Deb, thank you very much for coming in.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you next week. Take care.
Bye.